Sam Amick, the senior NBA writer for The Athletic, joins us. Let me start with that question there, Sam. If you're a Knicks fan, would you rather tune in to see Kevin Durant or Zion Williamson?
Dan, fascinating question. I don't know. I think it's a matter of, does your brain work on the business side or the basketball side? I mean, Zion's amazing, but we can't forget there is a chance that he won't pan out. You know what I mean? So I'm going to go with the guaranteed commodity and the guy that he might not fill the seats to the degree that a LeBron would or somebody like that, but he's going to fill seats, and you know what he is, and you know that he's got a lot of years of Hall of Fame basketball in front of him. So I'll do KD.
Do you think when that lottery happens that next day that it will affect Kevin Durant's plans, Kyrie Irving's plans, maybe somebody else? Does the lottery and where Zion goes affects anybody's free agency plans?
I think 100%. I think one of the things, if we could, Watergate style, break into the front offices of all these different teams, I guarantee you, they've got their scenarios in place already for if Zion goes to, your team, what the package then looks like where you are then trying to get Anthony Davis. Not to say that every team that might get Zion is going to try to send them down the line for AD, but some of them will. And then the ripple effect begins, because if you get traction on that front, then, those are the moving chess pieces here. It's Anthony Davis, KD, Kyrie, where do they go? And, because none of those guys want to be on an island trying to do this thing by themselves.
You wrote in The Athletic, sources, Rockets Game 1 referee rage rooted in extensive Warriors research here. What are the Rockets trying to put in front of the front office there with the NBA and these officials, and how does that affect the rest of this series?
So they obviously, out of frustration after Game 1, but this was something that goes so much farther back. I mean, they decided to kind of pull that curtain back and share with the world, through various means, if you will, that they've been doing a lot of digging on this front for a long time. And there's a lot of layers to it. The one that is front and center right now that I wrote about was the 2018 Western Conference Finals, and the reality that they had gotten their hands on the 48-minute report for all 7 games of that series. Every team has the ability to get game reports for their teams. You can't see other teams' game reports, but you can see the games that you're involved in. So they got that data from the NBA, which is just part of the whole system. And then they went through and line by line essentially audited it and came up with data, gleaned from the league issued information. And the conclusion was that they were harmed to the tune of 93 points on the aggregate over 7 games. 6 out of the 7 games, they had double-digit deficits when it comes to the way things should have been called. They had the edge in only Game 2, and it was pretty small. So that, it's just fascinating from an emotional, psychological standpoint. Now that we know that, if you go back and you watch Game 1 and you see the way they handled the officiating and the frustration level that they got to, it makes more sense. And it doesn't make it – I know a lot of people can't stand the way they're handling it, but, it is what it is. They feel like they got essentially jobbed out of a chance for the title last year, and they don't want to see that happen again.
Do you agree with their strategy?
If it works, you know what I mean? This is – I'm admittedly – I really put myself out there, didn't I?
Yeah.
I love it, admittedly, as a media member, storyteller. I'm leaning into this contrast between the analytics-driven Rockets who have taken this formula that people laughed at years ago, and they've taken it so far. They've become such a good team. But the ethos of who they are and how they went down this path hasn't changed. And, a lot of what they do, this is a math equation. And going to the free throw line, I'm gonna put a little agent hat on. My buddy Kurt Goldsberry from ESPN has got a great book out called Sprawl Ball, just came out, and he details the fact that the free throw is just far and away, in terms of points per shot, the best odds you have in this game. And so when they're in Game 1 of the conference finals, it's better than a wide open 3. It's better than anything else on the floor, and it's not even close. It's better than a wide open Steph Curry 3, as he writes in his book. And that's why they're losing their minds when the referees in their eyes are taking that tool away, because it's essentially like, wait a minute, this is our script. This is what we do. That's why James Harden, you'll see him because, listen, James doesn't shoot the three like Steph does, not even close. So the three for him is an even lower metric, but you get him to the line and it's just cash money. So that's why they're going crazy that they're not going to the line when they think they should be.
But are the Rockets saying that there's bad officiating or there's preferential treatment? There's a bias going on here because I think that's two separate categories. One is really serious. If you're accusing the NBA of having preferential treatments or a bias towards Golden State, then the commissioner needs to have a conversation with somebody in Houston.
I'd split the difference there, and I would say, to my knowledge, I've not had anybody going complete tinfoil hat approach and saying the fix is in. I think that the feeling is a couple of things. For one, that the champs in general, they step on the floor, they come with a certain gravitas that I think a team like the Rockets feels like that instantly changes the kind of the mood in the room and might impact the officials because of what they've been able to accomplish. Secondly, the more specifically, and this is where they're not going to find a lot of allies with this argument, but like the force of personality on the Warriors individually, Draymond, Kevin, the way he's kind of become pretty confrontational with refs, even Steph, what he did in Minnesota, Steve Kerr, absolutely, the way that he kind of works officials and his style, that they feel like the Warriors are just master manipulators with the referees, and they're trying to shed light on that. Now, the part where they lose people is, James Harden and Chris Paul are at the top of the list of guys that certainly do their share of complaining, do their share of manipulating, and so it's a little bit of the pot calling the kettle black there. But I think those two factors are probably what they hone in on.
So what happens tonight?
I don't think the Rockets are going to roll over by any means. I think some people feel like the optics of this whole thing and the PR fallout of the stuff that's come out might lead, to a blowout. I don't see that happening. I don't know who wins it, but I think we're in for a long series. The thing is that, people can recoil all they want at the way the Rockets get the job done, but I'm not about to kind of to forget the degree to which they've gotten the job done since mid-December. They're just an extremely good basketball team with an approach that you have to assume tonight, and this is what they were certainly hoping for, that, a lot of those 50-50 calls probably going to go their way, or at minimum the ones that, they had some in the first half in game one that were not 50-50. They were 100% should have gone the other way, and they didn't get them. So wouldn't shock me at all to see them go steal one at Oracle. I mean, they've won, is it 2 times there this year already? They're not really afraid of that environment. And the Warriors, even independent of all the Warriors locker room drama stuff that's happened during the season, just basketball-wise, their depth is an issue. The Rockets have better depth. And so I think it'll be a tight series for sure.
I don't know if it comes down to something as simple as this, though, Sam, and that is you have the Rockets with new school approach of basketball and the officials maybe with an old school of officiating, and they're not sure how to officiate the Rockets, and in particular, James Harden.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, that's something I hit on that in the piece, and certainly didn't come up with that on my own. They have a feeling, this is where it gets even more interesting, that older, more experienced officials, the Rockets believe, and this is part of their research, that they are less willing to essentially conform with the way the NBA has chosen to legislate, specifically the landing space three-pointer. You got to stay out of a guy's space, give him a spot to land, and that's even if his momentum is carrying him away from where he initially jumped. The idea from their side is that they have seen from a data perspective that younger officials appear, more on board with that plan, more on board with that way of calling plays like that.
That's interesting.
And so that's where the playoffs become a challenge for them, because inevitably the playoff referees are going to be the more experienced. Like the other night, I believe the least experienced ref on the floor had 9 seasons under his belt. And somebody from the league had told me that's probably the least experienced staff or officiating crew that they're going to see in the entire playoffs.
Wow.
So there might be some younger guys and younger women throughout the course of the regular season that if they look at their data, maybe they were getting more of those calls. Maybe that was, in their favor. And now all of a sudden, that's off the table.
Scott Foster is officiating tonight's game, too, by the way.
Yep.
and we know what Chris Paul and the Rockets think of Scott Foster.
What's crazy is that, even the idea that you think solely about the Rockets, first of all, when it comes to Scott, speaks volumes about like the degree to which Scott's been in the news over the course of time. Like, we've already forgotten that until recently, the Warriors were the team that had Scott as public enemy number one. They've had him as their least favorite ref for a long time. And so it should, in fairness to the league, and I tweeted this earlier, again, going back to conspiracy theory stuff that tends to come with this time of year, these crews get determined. The first 4 games of each series are predetermined. So it's basically just a happenstance type thing that now adds to the storyline, but it was already determined before game 1. But it's going to be a heck of an environment. I anticipate a repeat of what happened the other night that cracked me up. The entire crowd at Oracle is just at the top of their lungs chanting, "Refs, you suck." And I looked down, and Daryl Morey was standing amid the chaos, and he didn't take part, but you guarantee you between his ears he probably was. So, nobody's been happy so far. We'll see how it goes.
Sam, great stuff as always. Thanks for joining us.
You got it. Thanks, Dan.
And that's Sam Amick, the senior NBA writer for The Athletic. He's the one who had the story about this extensive Warriors research done by the Rockets.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune into Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV. Stream for free on VR Live or download the Dan Patrick Show app.